Hello and welcome to Run Testers. My name's Nick and this is our first run review of the New Balance Supercomp Trainer V3. So the Supercomp Trainer is a shoe that's undergone quite drastic changes with each of the three versions so far. The first version was a mega stack shoe, like well over 40mm, really bouncy, very rocketed shoe. Things were toned down a fair bit with the second version of the shoe, which came back down to a 40mm stack height, which is what you've got with the FC Trainer V3 as well. But the big update here is that New Balance has introduced a new PEBA EVA blended midsole foam into the FC Trainer V3, like we've seen across the fuel cell range a fair bit this year. It's a very expensive shoe in the UK at £230. It's kind of more normally priced in the US for a super trainer at $180. That UK price is pretty flabbergasting. It weighs in at 278 grams or 9.8 ounces in a UK size 9. It's got a 6mm drop from heel to toe and a stack height of 40mm at the heel, 34mm at the forefoot. So you've got a Phantom Fit mesh upper, which is similar to the ones we've seen on shoes like the Rebel and the SC V4 Elite shoe this year, but you've got a little bit more padding around the heel than with the SC Elite. It's still quite an open design. You've got that internal heel counter. The general New Balance heel design has caused some problems with a few shoes this year, so it'll be interesting to see if there's any problems with the SC Trainer V3, but I did wear it all day yesterday when travelling up to Inverness and it was perfectly comfortable for walking around, so hopefully it'll be fine on the run today. Then the midsole, you have the same version of fuel cell that I think is found on the Rebel V4, which means it's a PEBA EVA blend. I think it's about 20% PEBA. I mean, you can dive into all the exact makeup of all these foams and what materials are used and what amounts, but obviously it would just be how it feels on the run. It felt very good on the run with the Rebel. You've got a higher stack of it here with a carbon plate running through the shoe that you can see from the bottom of the shoe there. The plate is forked under the forefoot to reduce a little bit of weight, which is a difference to the SC Trainer V2. And the other difference you have here is that the big cutout doesn't extend all the way to the front of the shoe with the Trainer V3. You've got a more solid block of foam under the forefoot of the shoe, so it'll be interesting to see how that's changed the ride. Then you've got a rubber outsole, pretty thick layer and good coverage on the forefoot, 2 strips of rubber on the back, all the kind of key stuff covered, and it should be okay in terms of grip and durability. Comes to the fit of the New Balance SC Trainer V3, it was really good for me in my normal running shoe size. No concerns at all. Like, New Balance has had some interesting fits from its shoes this year. The heel design being a bit weird, coming in a bit short in the toe box and things like the Pacer, and I had no problems with this at all. Like, it's my normal size, I've got enough room in the toe box. It's not the most voluminous toe box, I would say. Like, it's not as kind of low to the toes as the Balos is, but it is something that you can feel the fabric of the shoe a little bit on your toes, but not in a way that made me feel cramped in any way today. I wouldn't have any concerns about running long in the shoe on that front. And the heel stayed put, no rubbing, no Achilles irritation, anything like that. So all round the fit was very good for me in my normal size. So this shoe is a UK 9, a US 9.5, which is the size I usually go for in New Balance. I tend to be a US 9.5 or a US 10. I think if this was a US 10, it wouldn't have been a problem really. That would work for me as well, but I was pretty happy in the smaller of those two sizes I tend to have. Yeah, no concerns at all with the fit. Hello from Inverness in Scotland. I'm about to head out and do my first run in the New Balance SC Trainer V3. I'm doing an easy to steady 45 minutes today with some strides at the end. I am racing tomorrow. I'm doing the Inverness 10K here, but with the aim of focusing on bigger goals, I'm kind of training through this week, doing a pretty normal week of training. So today's run is a pretty standard training run. I'll start off a nice gentle pace, work down to somewhere usually around 340, 345 a K by the end. Do some strides to liven up the legs for tomorrow's 10K and hopefully get a good feel for the shoe. Like, I've not been the biggest fan of this line of shoes from New Balance so far. First one was very fun, very bouncy, but I just found it a bit much. Over longer runs in particular, I just found it was a bit too much shoe for me. I prefer something slightly nimbler. Second shoe was nimbler, but the foam really didn't have much spark to it. It didn't really feel like a fast shoe at all. It felt just like a pretty standard daily trainer, and for a super trainer with a super trainer price, I wanted a bit more from it. So I'm hoping the third version with the improved foam here will have a bit more to it in that regard. It's obviously got a very high price in the UK. I think basically I have to review this on the US price alone, because £230 obviously more expensive than some of the best racing shoes on the market. But we'll see how it feels today with a nice progression run. Just back from the run now, and a very enjoyable run it was, alongside the River Ness and into the middle of it on the Ness Island and stuff like that. Lots of really nice paths, pretty flat, very enjoyable, nice views throughout, and moved through the gears more or less as expected, keeping it fairly controlled today with the race tomorrow, going down to around kind of 340 a K pace at the end. Few strides. first taste of really cold air for the year for me. Like, it's not that cold here yet today, but a fair bit colder than it was in London yesterday. So my lungs are getting used to that, because it's something I tend to adjust to a bit slowly at the start of winter. But very enjoyable run. Shoe was pretty good as well. Like, it didn't really blow me away, but it was pretty enjoyable out there. It's not got a load of sink in and squish yet. I think that's something that might come a bit more as it break in. Obviously, this is just one run. These are very initial thoughts on the shoe, but given the huge stack of foam here, I expected maybe a slightly squishier feeling, a more bouncy feeling, but it feels a lot more, to me, in line with the SC Trainer V2 than the V1, which was very bouncy from the off. You've certainly got a more controlled feeling at the forefoot in particular, without the kind of gaping canyon underneath it there. You hit that and you get a nice bit of punch off it. It has a bit more of that, I'd say, than the second version for me so far. Like, it was easier to run a bit quicker in this shoe than it was the SC Trainer V2, which I just felt was a bit muddy in transition. I felt like I kind of got lost in the middle of the shoe and didn't really get a nice feeling going onto my forefoot and then punching off that. But a bit more of that with this shoe for sure. It felt comfortable at those paces. No problems with the heel or anything like that. It certainly feels like a shoe you could cruise through a lot of easy and steady miles in, like as part of marathon training or something like that. It feels pretty comfortable at that. Not sure if we're going to have a lot more speed in it beyond that. We'll see how it feels if we try and hold, a good pace for something like an hour, things like that. But I'll try that a bit more before the full review. But it was a good first run experience in the shoe, but maybe not one that really stood out that much. You think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on here. It looks fantastic. Hopefully it's going to have a really explosive and fun feeling underfoot. You don't really get that so much. There are certainly shoes that had a more striking first run for me. Things like the Mizuno Neo Vista, the Hoka Mach X2. Like the case of the Mizuno, it's a lot softer, a lot bouncier, straight from the off, whereas the Mach felt a bit more sprightly, a bit more fast. This felt pretty good, but yeah, like I say, not that striking. But I do think there's a potential here for the foam to break in a bit and get a bit more soft and squishy and springy over time. So early verdict on the New Balance Trainer V3. It looks like another solid addition to New Balance's training lineup. So far it feels like the version of the SC Trainer that's going to suit me the best of the three ones so far. I found the first one just a bit too big and bulky for me to run long in, and the second one I just didn't really like very much at all. I didn't really feel like it had any kind of punch for faster running, and I do think this shoe has a bit more of that. It feels like it's going to be a bit more comfortable at faster paces. It feels a bit more nimble and less unwieldy than the first version of the shoe. Although I know that was a shoe that lots of people loved because it was so exaggeratedly bouncy. It just was a bit much for me. So that's good. It does feel like a shoe you can rack up a lot of miles in. I mean, the price in the UK, I don't know what's happened here. Like, £230 versus $180. I mean, £230 full stop is a very silly price for a shoe like this, I think, because that puts you more expensive than some absolutely amazing carbon plate running shoes. And it's just too much money, obviously. Like, you can spend a lot less than that and get the Hoka Mach X2, the Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. So I think in the UK, I don't know, wait for it to be half price, something like that. But in the US, 180 is much more in line with other super trainers, and how it competes against those will be a bit more interesting because, it's not going to be able to compete in the UK with that price, I think. I don't know what's happened there. It'll be very interesting to know why it is £230 and $180. But okay, $180, it feels like a super trainer that's probably more at the end, where it's a bit more relaxed, a bit more mileage focused, a bit more daily training focused than, a really explosive super trainer you could maybe sub in for a race day shoe, something like the Hoka Mach X2, Saucony Endorphin Speed 4. Those tend to be my preferred plate shoes, because if I'm looking at spending a lot of money on a plated super trainer, I want one that can do the fast stuff really well and still be pretty comfortable for easy stuff. This feels like it's more the other end, where it will do the easy stuff really well and then be okay for the fast stuff. See how that is though. I'll do some actual fast running in this shoe before our full review, take it out for some long runs. I think that's probably where it's going to be really at its best, is kind of long runs. I'm just getting going with my Valencia marathon block, so there'll be lots of opportunities to do long runs, pretty hard long runs in this shoe, and see how it feels for those. Probably going up against things like the Mizuno Neo Vista, which I think are really good, really strong in this area of the super trainer market, the kind of more relaxed ones that can do lots of mileage. Obviously in the New Balance range, you've got loads of really good shoes now that are good, versatile trainers. The Rebel, which is a lower stack plateless version of this, which I really love as a shoe and actually felt quite comfortable for long runs and felt very light and nimble for faster stuff. There's the Balos, which is an incredible long run shoe, really soft, really bounced, nice and rockered, no plate, but a fair bit lighter than this shoe. And I'm not sure you're going to have too much of a difference in terms of their capability at faster paces, and the Balos is, really fun for those long runs. And then you've got the Balos price compared to this. It's very funny because that's £200, which is obviously definitely a better deal than this shoe in the UK, but then it's $200, so it's more expensive than the shoe in the US. So all kinds of fun and games with New Balance's pricing this year, but so those are a couple of good shoes. Obviously, actually, more expensive than New Balance Pacer V2, which is obviously a full carbon plate racing shoe, more focused on kind of shorter stuff. And it's not actually that far off the price of the FC Elite V4, which has a similar stack height but a full PEBA midsole, so that's actually a good shoe for lots of training potentially as well. So it's quite a lot going on in New Balance's range. I think it does have its place as this super trainer, but I'd like to see that foam break in a fair bit and get a bit more squishy and fun as training goes on in the shoe. But that was a pretty solid first run in the New Balance Trainer V3.